Hello, Michael James here again. So in the last video, we had a look at this Scrum certification style question. In this video, we're going to answer it and go through each of the possible answers and explain them in depth to find out which are the two actual correct answers. So I just want to reiterate as well, these questions are not the exact same that you would find in any Scrum certification, the ones that I've created, and they are representative of what you might find. So you never know, you might get one similar to this, but that would just be purely coincidence. They are still really useful to go through these type of questions, to get used to answering these type of multiple choice questions. And you never know, you might get one that's fairly close to it in the certification. So this one was about the IT and product teams asking how many sprints are needed in order to complete the architecture and infrastructure before starting to develop product features. Now, of course, in Scrum, what we want to do is be creating increments from the very first sprints, and we want to organically create the architecture as we go along, and we want to focus on bringing value to the production. So we want to get a valuable output as soon as possible rather than front loading lots of planning and lots of architecture. So that's a general principle of Scrum. Now, if you have a look at the Agile principles, number 11 is that the best architectures, requirements and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. So that's the same with architecture. It should emerge. The thing is, we're working in the complex domain, and so we have this cone of uncertainty, and we don't know exactly what we don't know, basically. So we start to work on things for the first time, we're building things for the first time, and our estimates about planning and what we can get done often turn out not to be correct as we start working because unforeseen problems occur. So the idea is to try and build this organically and take it sprint by sprint. So that's a general principle for that, and why some of this, why this IT and product teams have kind of got the wrong mindset. And if you're a Scrum Master, then you might want to explain this. So the first one that is correct is B. Architecture and infrastructure should evolve alongside feature development. Now, because of the reasons I mentioned before, and it also is in the Agile principles that it should emerge, we'll have a look into why a little bit in a sec. But the second part of that question, of that answer, sorry, is enabling faster delivery of business value, which is, of course, what we want with Agile. We want to focus on what is actually valuable and work towards that. And we don't want to hold it back by lots of planning and lots of architecture development that might end up becoming something that we didn't need necessarily when we start working a little bit further on the project. Then we look back and we go, actually, we didn't need the architecture, or we've constricted ourselves because of that architecture. And now, for unforeseen circumstances, what is valuable is something different. And now, now we're kind of like restricted to where we are because of putting lots of time into the architecture. And also it delays bringing out features and functions in order to get that empirical feedback from users to tell us if that actually was something that was valuable. So we don't want any of that. We want it all to be incremental, step by step, little bit by little bit. And this actual answer aligns with the principle that Agile development is iterative and incremental, avoids large upfront design phases, and instead integrates the technical work into the flow of the product development. And this ensures that architecture and infrastructure evolve on actual needs, reducing waste and enabling adaptability. Okay, so the second one that is correct is the D. The product owner and development team should add this work to the product backlog. Of course, they should do that because it enables transparency. Then they should estimate it early and balance it with business functionality in initial sprints. And they should also balance it with need as well and prioritization on what actually is valuable. So there's nothing in that question that is incorrect. In Scrum, all work necessary to deliver a valuable product, including the technical tasks like architecture and infrastructure, should be visible in the product backlog. Then the team can estimate it and prioritize it and balance it with the feature development to ensure continuous progress. And balancing it with that feature development means that the focus is on feature development. And the reason for that is because it's the features that are the valuable thing. We don't want to get into busy work where we think, yeah, we're making progress because we're building lots of architecture, we're doing lots of planning, But ultimately, if you're not outputting value early and often, you're not actually creating something valuable for your users, and you're not getting the feedback from the users to find out if it actually was valuable either. So that's the reason why those two are correct. The other two options, I'll just have a quick look. I've got some notes here. The product management focusing solely on business needs. So that's A, not technical details. Developers will collaborate with IT as needed and update the product owner on extra effort, which will be added to the sprint backlog before sprint planning. Okay, so this ignores the collaborative nature of Scrum, where cross-functional teams work together to ensure technical feasibility. So the product management should focus on business needs, not technical details. Well, true, but we want them to work in a DevOps model with the developers, so we don't want to isolate them. That's not something that we want to do. Developers will collaborate with IT as needed and update the product owner on extra effort. It sounds like the team's been split here, and really want everybody free to be able to collaborate and work together as a cross-functional team. So that one's a little bit iffy, and that's why that one isn't one of the best answers. I just wanted to add on this one, it's an interesting point at the end where it says that the developers will talk to the product owner about extra effort, and then that'll be added to the sprint backlog before sprint planning. Now, we don't have enough information about exactly what's going on in this question to determine whether that is strictly incorrect or not. Your gut instinct should be telling you that first it should go into the product backlog, be prioritized, and then pulled into the sprint backlog. But of course, if the sprint is already in effect and the sprint goal has been set, the developers are going to be adding things to the sprint backlog in order to meet the sprint goal. They're the ones that control the sprint backlog. And if there's anything that comes up that requires extra effort, then discussion with the product owner might need to take place in order to determine value. But ultimately, they're working towards the sprint goal at that point. So it's not totally wrong to say that the developers would add stuff to the sprint backlog. They would be doing that all the time during the sprint. But it maybe is a bit dubious if it's something completely outside of the sprint goal that is then added to the sprint backlog directly when it should have gone into the product backlog first in order to consider it for a future sprint, for it to be prioritized and discussed. So that one, we don't know the full extent to this. It does say at the start of the question that it's the start in the agile journey, and it sort of gives the sense that the sprints haven't started yet. Then again, if that was the case, there wouldn't be a sprint backlog. So I don't want to overcomplicate this one, but I just thought that was an interesting part of the question, because the initial gut instinct was that it should go to the product backlog first rather than going straight to sprint planning. But I can think of instances where the developers would want to add tasks to the sprint backlog in order to meet that sprint goal. So I can't say for sure that is completely incorrect. The next one is about C. While a technical foundation is necessary, upfront cost estimates may be unreliable. The first sprint can establish this foundation to refine budget and timeline estimates. So again, according to the Scrum guide, there's no such thing as a sprint zero. It's more of a waterfall method to actually plan things out first and then try and define a budget. It works better in the complicated domain, such as like if you are a house builder, if you're one of these companies that builds properties and they take a plot of land and they build the same houses on it basically, and then they move on and they go to another plot of land and they build the same houses from the same blueprints and the same architecture. What that is the complicated domain. But because they've done it before, they've got a good idea of how long tasks take, and that means that, and what's involved in it, and that means that they can plan quite accurately. Now, of course, there's going to be things that come up that they're not going to have predicted or foreseen, but they can get a fairly good estimated plan initially because they've done it before. Whereas in the complex domain, where we're working on things that we've not done before, we really don't know how much time things are going to take. Estimating is really, really difficult. And because of that, it's really difficult to pin down how a budget as well. So doing this up front really goes against the Scrum ethos. simply, if we try to do that in the complex domain, then what's going to happen is we're going to end up miscalculating, misestimating, and run over time and over budget, which is a nightmare. So we want to get out of that mindset. So that one is also not one of the the best answers there. Okay, I hope that made sense. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. I'm going to try and bring out more questions. If you've got a question that you want me to attempt to answer and explain, go to my Facebook group and you can add a question there, or just find me on LinkedIn as well. And if you want to get better at your Scrum certifications, I've got courses that I've helped 120,000 students pass their Scrum certifications with. So check me out on Udemy under Michael James, or go to learnmanagementonline.com. Thanks for watching and goodbye.